Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. We are back. I hope you had a great weekend. Lots to talk about today. Going to dive into this Grant Yun mint that's happening right now. Going to talk about the Ether mint not actually selling out or kind of going through, and a lot more. Let's dive right into it, starting off with a quick market overview. Volumes were down again, still kind of just tapering off those volumes on Blur, particularly, since trade bidding began. Which, as I've said before, I think that tends to be a good thing. A lot of times recently, high volume is a sign of a lot of people jumping into bids, a lot of airdrop armors trading back and forth. So when we get less of that, I actually think that's a good thing for this market. Blur had 73% market share over the past 24 hours, right in the range that they've broadly been in. In terms of the large cap index, we were up on Friday. Then we've had a couple small down days. Pretty strong little rally, though, we had basically over the past week, ever since we troughed following the Azuki news over the past 3 days. World of Women and Captains were quite weak and had some strength in Azuki and some strength in Cryptopunks. Looking at the mid-cap index, broadly flat, not as much movement or as much volatility as we've seen in the large cap index. A lot of different types of moves from different projects. Fluff and Deadfell is pretty strong over the past couple of days, and weakness in cyber brokers. One project I wanted to touch on is Fatzuki. Who knows? Degen's going to degen. Anytime you get some sort of meta that's kind of hot, more derivatives start to form around it. This Fatzuki project minted for below 0.01 ETH, and we are seeing the trades right now of at 0.07 ETH, and it's basically identical NFTs to the Azuki, just fatter people. So here's a little bit of the art you can see right here. They actually, even despite that really low mint price, they did raise 79 ETH, so $160,000, something like that. Not bad for a couple days work, but people who got that mint have done quite well as well. So congrats to them. Sticking with this Azuki theme, the Elementals project has kind of been flat down a touch over the past day after being up a little bit on Friday. They had that vote. We talked about that vote where they were going to decide if they were going to change the background. Ultimately, I think the consensus was that the changes they were trying to make were too subtle. It wasn't worth it for them to really go and make that change to the metadata, kind of hit the provenance of the collection, given the change was so subtle, and you end up seeing 86.9% of the votes go against the change. 80% of the votes were not cast. Only 20% of the Elementals actually voted. Elementals and Beans both had votes, but yeah, pretty strong and resounding vote to not make the change to that background. One thing Pudgy Penguins have been, basically flat still, kind of hanging out in that 3.9 to 4.1 ETH range, but they did on July 8th, that Saturday, they did have a sale of these physical banana suit penguins, which sold out in 7 seconds. So kind of pretty massive and quick sale there. You can see here what they look like, selling these banana suit pudgy penguins for $249. They sold 150 of them, so kept them limited supply, raised about $37,000. And this is the theme we saw with the Azuki Golden Skateboards. Like, these physicals are kind of nice because they're non-dilutive to the NFT collection, but they are collectibles, and the people who are religious about your project gives them something else they can buy in a different way for a project like Pudgy Penguins to make money. Luca Nets was tweeting today about how royalties effectively are over at this point, so you really have to have other ways to make money if you want to survive. I want to talk about art blocks just because ever since that Sotheby's auction, art blocks have been performing pretty well. What you see here is, and this chart goes back to September 1st, 2022, is that art blocks are actually up over that period. I mean, this has been a terrible bear market for NFTs, but the art blocks are up. They've really been able to sustain some of that floor price adjustment that they had after a couple of those Sotheby's auctions, particularly that first one where Fidenza sold for over $1 million. You can see here, when you compare art blocks with the large cap index, the large cap PFP index over this time is down about 50%. While the art blocks, and this is an index I created with 11 of the biggest art blocks, is still up. So serious outperformance. And then one art project, not an art blocks, but an art project I also wanted to mention is Terraform's. Terraform's just completely catching fire. The floor has gone from 1.2 to 2.2 ETH in just about a week. So very strong performance there. Saw Grant Yun on his feed say, what's going on with Terraforms? Can someone explain? And I think a spaces started forming around it, and you really just saw a huge rally. I have heard people put Terraforms in the bucket with Chromie Squiggles and Cryptopunks in terms of projects that have kind of long-standing provenance. So, I personally don't own any, but definitely a project I want to dig deeper in. I think there's a whole lot going on there. In terms of our projects that had big moves over the weekend or a lot of volume, Fidenzas, we had 2 big Fidenza sales. We actually had 2 Ringer sales, bunch of Chromie Squiggles. Everything else was below 10 ETH of volume, at least over the past 24 hours. in terms of what some of those sales were. This Fidenza sold for 71 ETH, also had a sale for 75 ETH, which pushed the OpenSea floor to 92. And the floor, the real floor for Fidenzas right now is on LooksRare, where it's at 85 ETH. The ringers, we had 2 ringers sale. This is a beautiful one with that red peg, really clean 5x5 grid, just sold for 50 ETH. A fuzzy chromey squiggle sold for 12 ETH. And then we have a Meridian here, just black and white, sold for 7.9 ETH. Also a really nice harvest sale, I believe for 6 ETH. So a whole bunch of cool stuff that happened in art blocks. Second thing to talk about, the Ether project does not mint out. Remember, this is what their art was going to look like. And this was a really kind of quiet project. They only tweeted 16 times in the entire year. Their Twitter account's been around since July of 2022. So not a whole lot of visibility, at least to the public, on what these guys are doing. But they wanted to do that public mint at 0.65 ETH. That was down from a lot higher, and it did not mint out. Here they were saying the public sale is now live. Connect your wallet, kind of saying, let's go. And then they later said that it just became clear, when the floor on Blur for the capsules got below 0.65 ETH, you're not going to be seeing that thing mint out. In terms of where the mints were, one of the interesting things here is they did kind of the private sale. The allow list happened over a week ago. And those, and there they minted anywhere from 600 to 800. And they had 2 different types. You could either go 0 ETH, but if you did 0 ETH, you had to pledge basically to hold it, I believe, for 10 weeks. So you really kind of had a restricted trading period, or a 0.35 ETH where you could sell it right away. And you can see that it's been about a week since they've minted any. So they put that real big gap in there. And I'm not sure exactly why they did that. Over that period, you can see where the prices have gone. At first, prices were at 0.9 ETH. And then kind of over the week, they were trending in that 0.7 ETH range. And then once it became clear this wasn't going to be minted out, the price really fell, got down below 0.5 ETH. My basic takeaway here is you have an unknown team. They didn't dox. I believe someone else did dox them, but they were an anonymous team. They tweeted a total of 16 times over a course of a year. They're asking people to pay $1,250. Even long established projects aren't getting this 0.65 ETH price right now. So it's a really ambitious price. I think also when you lower the price, and this kind of goes against what I was saying, but NFTs are momentum assets. So if you set it too high, that's your first problem, because then you have to lower to make it achievable. Other people see that you're not hitting your targets, that negative momentum kicks in, kind of a wet blanket for FOMO in general. And I think that kind of hurt them as well. Even with all this, this project that we don't know much about raised $1 million. Not bad for 1 year's work. I think while this didn't go to plan, that is still a lot of money to raise from the ecosystem. So I almost find it more surprising that they thought they could raise at 0.65 ETH than that they didn't. This is just such an aggressive price for this market. So, we'll see how this plays out. The book isn't written. Kampai Pandas were unminted for a very long time before they finally minted out. So, who knows? It's possible that, they'll stick around, and we'll see what happens over time. Third thing to talk about is the Grant Yoon did a mint with Station 3. Station 3 is a kind of an incubator ecosystem that's being created by Bob Lucas. Bob Lucas is one of the biggest collectors in the game. I think right now there are only a few collectors that are really left buying the grails, saying they're still here, putting capital to work. And Bob Lucas is certainly one of them. So they did the mint. This is the piece, really kind of cool Grant Yoon piece, kind of in that signature Grant Yoon look and feel. Station 3 is tied to New York. And this art piece, of course, is as well. And what they're doing is you don't just get that piece. It's also a patron pass for people to be part of Station 3. They call themselves the largest Web3 community, basically in New York right now, trying to fund $2.7 million of grants to people who are building in the space. So pretty interesting stuff there. It is a 0.88 ETH mint price. There's 1,000 supplies. So ambitious target to be raising, 880 ETH. A little bit more though about what you get with it. First of all, Station 3 has already issued a ton of grants, more than 40 grants to builders in the space. They're trying to issue more than 100 team grants, more than 300 individual grants. So they have very ambitious targets for funding people in the space. It gives people who hold the pass unlimited access to work from their facility and to be part of their Web3 community. They also have a bunch of token gated events in real life, as well as virtual and parties that you'll have access to. Also, you can be automatically enrolled in their raffles, and they're planning to do raffles for ringers, QQLs, work by Emily Shi, Laura L, and a bunch of other great artists. So interesting stuff going on. Here are some pictures of the space. I live in a ski town in Colorado. I would love a space like this where I can go and work with other Web3 people. So if I lived in New York, I would certainly be considering it. So interesting stuff to see there. I believe right now, it's been a little bit slow. I think a few hundred of them have sold out. Well, there are a few hundred that have not sold out. So we will see how that evolves over time. And then lastly, let's talk about a few notable sales. Starting off with a PFP, this VR hoodie Cryptopunk sold for 217.5 ETH. This is kind of grail on grail. You know, VR is a great trait. Hoodie is one of the most expensive traits that a person can, a human CryptoPunk can have. So this is kind of grail on grail. So for 217.5 ETH, kind of at the price that floor hoodie punks were selling for about 3 or 4 months ago. But still, you know, in this market, you can never complain about a 200 plus ETH sale. This piece, Historical Political Plowig by Botto Project, sold for 20.195 ETH. Remember, Botto Project is a DAO, a bunch of people who own tokens and vote on AI creations of art, tell the model what they like, what they don't like. And this is one of the bigger sales that we've seen from Botto Project. I asked ChatGPT, what does Plowig mean? And it didn't know. It said it was probably a misspelling, but it's not a misspelling. It's used in the description a lot, but very cool sale here. Very cool image, you know, kind of meshing that frog and human theme that is quite common in NFTs and in Web3 in general. Now, if you look at kind of where the last sales have been for a lot of the other pieces as part of this Rebellion set, which is part of Botto Project, the other ones have been in the 4 to 6 ETH range. So this one selling over 20 is a very notable sale. This piece here, Retina by Rafaël Rozendaal, sold for 5 ETH. You know, this is a one of one for Rozendaal, who is generally a generative artist. You can see that Rozendaal is one of the most prolific art blocks artists there is. It has a bunch of projects. Some of them, you know, one of this in the lower left, this project Cabinet's only 50 of them, but with floor as high as 12 ETH. So really kind of prolific generative artist, but nice to see that one of one sale that happened on Manifold. And then lastly, this piece called The Politician by Goldcat sold for 5 ETH. Kind of when you see it's called Politician and you look at it for a little long enough, I think it's a pretty cool image here. The buyer was this CCW Mode, claimed picked up some art recently, very pleased with them. The artists that are grinding this bear are the ones that will make it in the next cycle. Goldcat has had a bunch of sales, you know, really into this digital painting medium, has had sales in that 4 to 6 ETH range. So this was right in the middle there. So congrats to the artist as well as the buyer. Just a little bit more. I couldn't find a whole lot about Goldcat, but here's an image. Claims to be a JPEG expressionist from Germany. Clearly, you know, very involved in digital painting. So love to see that. That is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell us what you think in the comments, and we'll be back tomorrow and just about every weekday with another show. Have a great day.